had a very good long weekend, a great Labor Day weekend, and are looking forward to getting into the new semester. Here we go. I see we've got somebody looking forward to the new semester and informing creative development. So by way of introduction, I'm Anne Green. I am semi-retired. I have my own business, Greenlight Consulting, which focuses on creative development. It is very much a passion point of mine, and one that I believe needs to be more insight infused, more consumer led. You can always spot a campaign that has been insight informed, consumer led, because it really represents itself in a way that touches us on a different level, that is relevant to us on a different level, and just performs much more strongly than your other campaigns. Before I go any further, I wanted to welcome Raphael as a special guest of ours. We have a few folks that are going to be joining us from Bank of America. So Bank of America folks, we realize that you will not be able to use Brightspace. So Raphael has very kindly set up a special location where all of the materials will be available to you. But Raphael is also going to be sharing with you his contact information, and should you have any problem with the materials, Raphael knows how to get in touch with me, and we can make sure that you have everything that you need to complete the course. So back to me for a minute, and there's Raphael's information. So thank you for that, Raphael. I have been in the insights business for longer than I care to admit, so I won't mention the number of years, but it has really been my career. And it's interesting because when you think about insights, I don't know of very many people that ever actually said when they were growing up, you know what, I want to go into research. I want to go into insights. That's what I want to do. I don't think I've come across anybody. It's the kind of thing that you fall into and you suddenly find, oh yeah, all right, this is interesting. It's sort of at the intersection of people and marketing and brands and analytics. So there's a lot going on there that is very fascinating. So our focus is going to be on informing creative development. But before we get into the content and sharing some of the materials, I would love to go around and just hear from each of you what company you are with, what your focus is, and what you would like to get out of this course. Because one of the things I will be doing is holding my own feet to the fire to make sure at the end of the day, when we circle back after week 7, that we have addressed your learning objectives. So with that, I'm going to start with my upper left-hand corner, which is David. And David, would love to hear from you where you're from and what your role is and what you're looking to learn. And when you're done, just tag in a neighbor.
Yeah, I'm David Dalvo. I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin. I work for Best Buy, so technically I work remotely because the corporate office is in Minnesota. I specifically handle more so now creative effectiveness. So understanding how well our creatives are meeting our brand goals and objectives. So the thing I want to get out of this course is because I know more so of the media side of it. So I've always been on the what happens when the creative is finished. But that's where my job I need to know a little bit more is because I feel like I'm missing things about like how insights are fused into bringing the creative elements to life. Especially because I deal with our creative team the most, so it's kind of hard to talk to them when I don't really know the process that it goes to into that. And then I'll pass it to Stephen because he's the next to me.
Sure. So, Steve Martin, I work for Bank of America. My primary role is handling our brand tracker. So, it's kind of a long, continuous tracker that provides upper funnel insights into our brand as well as perceptions around it. We do a little bit of in market creative testing, and I also consult with our lead media agency regarding their brand list studies and market. What I'm hoping to get out of this study is really just kind of learn the language to talk cross agency. So I know we had part of our module here about, just the creatives, the researchers, and those sorts of things, and just getting on the same page with talking to them and how to best present research that may or may not align to the creative's point of view, and how to incorporate it as a team where we all lift each other up versus having a conflict with that. And then I'll go ahead and pass it to Lori Henderson.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thanks, Steve. So I'm Lori Henderson. I also am from Bank of America, work primarily in research, supporting our business clients, any research for our business clients, as well as our wealth clients. So think of like Merrill Lynch Wealth Management, for example. And the research teams really, we cover everything from client satisfaction to message testing. It can even be like sometimes product development, strategic, research. So really it runs the gamut. As far as this class goes, so it feels like very often we are called in to do research towards the end of the creative development cycle. I feel like a lot of times we're sort of left out of that earlier stages, and it's, there's agencies involved and they're developing creative, but I don't know where they get their insights to actually do the development of it. I mean, they do, I'm sure, look at, research that's been done in the past and do like a whole sort of inventory of what we know about our customer and all of that. But I think I wanted to sort of, what I'm looking to get out of the class is really understanding where research can sort of provide insights along the whole sort of path of that creative development journey. And I am going to pass it over to Jacqueline.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline. I work at Jaguar Land Rover at corporate, so not one of the dealers. And I am the digital lead for all of our brands. I primarily manage the website, so a lot of that is A/B testing and constant optimizing of the websites to have the best client experience when people are on our site shopping for cars. Out of this class, I'm hoping to get more knowledge into neurological behaviors that make people interested in certain creatives and different ads, and then how that could potentially translate to the website and any skills or insights that I could transfer for that. I will pass it to Kelly.
Hi, my name's Kelly Dame. I'm with advertising agency VML. I'm based out of Kansas City, and I totally relate to the "you just fall into it." I, for a decade, was in TV news and journalism as a TV news anchor, and kind of went into the advertising world. In the last 7 years, I've done business development, then account management, and now research, which has just been an awesome mix of kind of everything I've done. And so because of that, really interested in taking the class, being new into the research world in the last couple of years. And I know that we also get asked all the time from our creative teams. So I work primarily on the qualitative side within our research team. And we get asked a lot, what type of creative should we be putting in at this specific phase of the creative development? And so I'm interested to sharpen my skills a little bit more and to be able to understand kind of the best opportunities and when to put those research initiatives to task in the creative process. I will tap in.
You broke up there, but I think you said Colin.
I did.
Okay. Hey. Hi, I'm Colin Wright. I'm also from Kansas City, but I live in New York. I work for Citigroup, so not Bank of America. I work for Citigroup. I work in global communications for our U.S. retail bank division within U.S. personal banking. In my job, I support, in my job, I in addition to sort of the standard global communications, inbound, outbound type work, I also do more marketing adjacent work. So creator content, affiliate marketing, sponsored content, those sorts of activities. And in this course, and really in this certificate, I'd like to move a little bit more decisively toward marketing in my career. And this is a way to start that process and become more fluent in the terms and in my understanding of marketing beyond the activities that I support in my day-to-day job. And in this course, in this module, I'd like to learn more about how to bring in customer insights and to be more creative in terms of the work that I'm putting out. So I'm going to pass it to Samantha.
All right. Hi, everyone. I am Samantha Birchwood. I am based out of New York, and I currently work at Kantar. So the reason why I chose this class, or why I'm interested in this class, is because yes, I do work in market research, but at the same time, I only know about creative development from the research side, not from the media side or the creative side. So I want to learn more about, the various, especially like, learning about the stakeholders in one of the videos that we had in module 1. I think learning more about the stakeholders and just learning about how the end client, which is typically, because I work with a lot of agencies, so like knowing about like how the end client and the media agencies and the publishers use the creative to further their their KPIs and their goals, and using the information I learned from this class to further the analysis and create more actionable insights in future reports. And I am going to kick it to Lynn.
Hi, I'm Lynn Burzak. I am one of the Bank of America people. I primarily work on Merrill side of the business, on the wealth management side. Been doing that for quite a few years, and that's been my focus almost the entire time. I do lots of different types of research, but it's primarily with our financial advisors. So it's a different way of looking at creative, because we're trying to promote them and get them to understand, be happy where we are, but also it has to be focused on outside to bring clients in, et cetera. So it's an interesting sort of trying to bring the insights from the FAs and their feelings while taking care of the other side too. So, one of the reasons why I wanted to take this class is because I don't see things end to end. I see a lot of bits and pieces of creative development and testing throughout my career. And some points I've seen a lot more upfront working with agencies, other points it's really the back end. So I sort of want to really put it all together and have a fuller understanding of the end-to-end approach. And I will pass it to Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm born and raised LA, and then I'm currently in New York. I work at Samba TV, which is a measurement data company on the measurement team, currently transitioning to the product team. But was really interested in taking this class because I'm kind of measurement. And so a lot of times I'm presenting results to other measurement folks, analytics folks, but really trying to understand how to make it a little bit more relevant to the creative side, and just understanding in general a little bit more what goes into that process, considering as a measurement vendor, you don't always get that exposure. I'm very sorry, guys, but my computer's fritzing out, so I can't see everyone's name or faces. If someone else who hasn't gone just wants to jump in.
Why don't we go with Samantha?
I'm Samantha. I work at the ARF on the research team as a data scientist. And I've kind of always been in insights, but I started at the ARF a year ago, and it was my first job in anything that was advertising related at all. So I have a lot to learn about the industry. And although the ARF doesn't do our own creative development, I think as a researcher, the relationship between researcher and stakeholder and how to present and decide on research paths that are the most impactful it's always important to learn about. And so I'm interested in theoretically that relationship, as well as just learning more about the industry as a whole. And I think Abilio hasn't gone yet, right?
Yeah. Hi, Abilio Andreas. I am in New York. I am with Warner Bros. Discovery, and I support the ad sales research team. Yeah, I mean, I work with the ad sales research as well as programming research team for the US Hispanic networks. I've always worked with quantitative research, very focused on Nielsen numbers. And with this class, I am looking to expanding my knowledge and being exposed to other facets of research in general. And I think that I am the last one.
I think you are the last one. Thank you, Abilio. So one of the things I mentioned to you in my welcome note is I'd love to kick us off just by talking about advertising and the advertising that you love. So I'm going to start off, let's see, I won't pick on poor David again. I'm going to start in bottom right this time instead of top left, which means it's Jacqueline, you're up first. And I'd love to hear from you, what campaign, what advertising do you really like, admire, and what did some of this week's reading and videos make you think about that advertising?
Sure. So one campaign that stuck with me actually from last year's Super Bowl was the one with Michael Cera and CeraVe. I thought that one was super creative. And I can only imagine how many searches that they got for that, because I fell victim to that. I saw that all over. It was, multi-channel, and I said, wait a second, is he really involved in this? I fell for it. So I thought that was a really witty one. And I always admire the ones that kind of go outside the box and push the edge a little bit, because at my company, we are so not humorous and we're so elevated and luxurious that we don't really get to tap too much into humor. So I always enjoyed that kind of marketing and those campaigns. And the reading this week I thought was really interesting because I work very closely with our creative agency, and my CMO is very heavily involved and supports research. And I think that with the emergence of the importance and emphasis we have as a company been putting on data, just even in the last few years since I've been there, it has been an interesting tug of war of, oh, well, what does the data say? Or what do we in our gut think that our clients will like? So the articles that talked about agency relationships, and then the larger one that talked about marketers versus researchers versus creative agencies, it was all super interesting and something that I was able to resonate with. And I'm hoping I'll be able to take it away and further improve my relationship with our agency stakeholders.
Yeah, stakeholder relationships are absolutely critical in getting the development process right, especially when so many of us only see the late stages. When you were talking about your own experiences, so many of us only see the late stages. And to be able to get there, you have to be able to have that better alignment so that everybody is feeling inspired and working together towards great advertising. Jacqueline, you also mentioned in your introduction that you were interested in some of the neurosciences. And one of the things you mentioned was you loved the ad for CeraVe because it was different. It was unexpected. And that is one of the things that we learn about how the brain works, is the brain actually pays attention to the things that are different from others, that are distinctive, that are unexpected. It's like the brain has a sudden aha moment and registers what it's seeing. And so that's going to be one of the things that we talk about when we talk about the measurement frameworks and neuroscience, is this element of distinctiveness. So great point on that one. So Colin, talk to me a little bit about an ad that you love. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Sure. One of the ads that sticks out to me the most, that has stuck out to me the most recently, has been Vrbo's campaign around highlighting differences between it and Airbnb. Vrbo, it really leans into the idea that they have elevated whole home options rather than Airbnb's options, which include, sharing a home with the host. And the creative for that and I think it was, I could be mistaken. I think it might have been a Super Bowl ad. If not, it was right around that time where the campaign began. The creative just really leaned into these like beautiful vacation homes, these like real families experiencing these homes together, and all of the different occasions on which you might, rent a vacation home with your family. One was a family reunion. One was a 4-person family who was, just sort of like the kid was scaring the dad, and it was just regular moments, right, within a rental house.
Yep.
And I, it sticks out to me because I became a Vrbo user after that. In addition to the whole home message, there was also a message around its customer service and its customer service guarantees that I thought was done really well and simply. This was around the time where Airbnb was in the spotlight for its billing practices, and with consumers claiming that Airbnb was less than forthcoming or upfront in their taxes and fees and such. And I think Vrbo's campaign really highlighted the differences between its approach to customer service, and without mentioning Airbnb's, in a really effective way that stood out within context.
Yeah,
Go
there was a really strong insight. Like one of the things
Mhm.
that you read about this week is the importance of the foundational insight. And you could see that Vrbo had found that tension
Mhm.
where the one I love is the 4 women or 3 women going away on a girls' trip, and they end up at basically a hotel where they're having to deal with other children in the pool when in fact they're trying to take vacation to get away from their children. It was
Yeah.
a real interesting insight there and a real tension that they addressed, which was, you're trying to get away. If you're stuck in a hotel, if you're in somebody else's house, you're not really getting away. And Vrbo is really the only one that can uniquely solve for that. And I thought that was really smart of them to surface that insight. But I cut you off, Colin. Apologies.
No, that's thank you for that additional color. The one of the things that stuck out to me, two things stuck out to me in the reading. The first was this, how to work with an agency effectively. And the agencies that I work with are communications agencies, but it's a similar dynamic. Transparency, trust, clear expectations, bringing them in early, sharing as much information as you can. Like these are the differences between this really makes the difference between having a dysfunctional agency relationship and having one that you can really bring in as a partner with executives and with folks within the business, and trust that they really are deeply read into what's happening. Also, the example in, I think, Mark Truss's the presentation using Nike and their ad copy. Don't wait to have a ring before you don't wait to have a ring before you play like one, or something similar to that. And his deconstructing of how that copy, that creative asset, fits into the big idea, the brand idea, and all down the line, I thought was really, really interesting. And it pulling the curtain back on those layers really showed me how tight that creative copy was to their overall everything that they're trying to do as a brand. And I thought it was a great look.
Yeah. we're going to be spending a lot of time sort of deconstructing, to use your language, Colin, to really get behind the curtain, to be able to see what the process is so that you understand that there are these critical milestones that occur long before you will ever see what is a consumer-facing ad. But the collaboration, the ways of working that have to be fostered throughout that process are very special. There is a lot of trust required. There is a lot of empathy required. They are very different than, say, measurement type relationships. And so we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about that. So thank you for that, Colin. Samantha, since we have Samantha, two Samanthas, I'm going to say Samantha B. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about an ad that you enjoy?
Yeah, so it's funny. When I was reading your email about like the different ads, and I was about picking an ad that we enjoy. I was going through the lectures, and I was thinking about the Snickers ad where you're not you when you're hangry, and then it was brought up as an example. So I was like, no, I won't do that. So another ad, well, another campaign that really stood out to me that I still remember, like maybe 10 years later, is, I don't know if you remember this, but there was like a share a Coke with, and then it would have insert your name.
Yes.
So like, I remember I was a teenager and I was like visiting my family in Florida, and every time I would go to the supermarket, of course, stacked up in a very pretty display would be, Coke bottles, and it would have different names. So, my name is Samantha. It's a very common name. So I had always expected myself, to find, my name on the bottle. But for some reason, and my cousin's name is Christina, so two common names. For some reason, we never found our names, but we would find different names that, weren't as common as ours. And so it's every time we'd go to the supermarket, we would look for our names for like minutes on minutes on minutes, and really just scan each and every can. And when we finally did find our name, we ended up buying a Coke. So I think that's like a really good example of, really good marketing, because it does speak to an insight that, I was thinking about, how we go on vacation and we look for like little trinkets with our names on it. It may be like, piece of jewelry or like a fake license plate, but we're always like searching for our names. It kind of gave me that similar experience. And, it prompts you to want to buy it because it has your name on it. And I absolutely love it. And then also like just, the sharing the Coke and everything. And me and my cousin ended up buying the Coke and just having that emotional connection to the advertising campaign. I really did like that.
Yeah. And yes, Kelly with an I can imagine that was not an easy one to find either. But think about what it did. Coke is not, Coke is ubiquitous. We all know Coke, and it is a strong brand. So what can you do with marketing Coke? Well, I can try to get people to spend more time with Coke. You think about your interaction with Coke, it's like, okay, I go to the store, I get the 6-pack, or I go to the vending machine, run my card, and I get a bottle of Coke or a can of Coke. You don't spend a lot of time thinking about Coke. But think about what you just said in terms of looking for Samantha, looking for Christina, looking for Kelly with an I. You spent so much more time with that brand than you ever would because of the creativity of that campaign. So that's a great example.
Yeah, and also funny thing is I'm a Sprite drinker. I don't really care for Coke, but it made me buy Coke.
Yeah, it got you to switch.
Just for that moment. But it was very memorable to me.
I love it.
And that's what makes creative really.
Yeah. How about Kristen? Kristen, talk to me a little bit about an ad, and maybe what some of the learning or the reading from this week applies.
So nobody judge me, but I'm like a trashy eater in general. And then one of the ads that really got me, and I remember it because it got me, was the stupid Taco Bell Crunchwrap ad with the giant Cheez-It. And it's memorable because I remember thinking it was disgusting, like it looked disgusting and there's no way I was gonna do it. But then when you get there and you realize it's a Cheez-It that's the size of 16 Cheez-Its, I had to try it, right? It kind of incited that action. And I don't really honestly feel like ads usually incite me to purchase a lot or try something. So I did think it was like an interesting thing. It kind of brings that childhood nostalgia of Cheez-Its to Taco Bell. I don't usually eat Crunchwrap, so it kind of got me to try a new product. So it's kind of very memorable in that sense. And then in terms of the learnings, I thought the stereotypes portion was really interesting between marketers, creatives, and research, just because I do sit on measurement. It's kind of like it's interesting to me because you almost on measurement want to be like an arbiter of truth, but in this sense, right, it's not always the best, it's not always appreciated. So kind of getting that other perspective. One of the other things I found really interesting in the article was when you're looking at the bar charts of when research is most valuable or most helpful. So like as a researcher, right, we test a lot of campaign effectiveness. So we measure the creatives, did it drive the action, all of that. I thought it was really interesting that creatives specifically find it the least helpful at the end stage, right? And they'd much rather prefer that optimization throughout the process rather than just like, no, go with this one here, let's make the final decision.
Yep, great point. And what you mentioned about the Cheez-It product, next week, we're going to be talking a little bit about brand advertising versus performance advertising. So there are going to be campaigns where you are looking to build a brand. And then there are going to be campaigns where you're just trying to sell a product. And they both have a role, but how do you approach each of those? So that's a great comment there. So Stephen, talk to me a little bit about advertising.
Let me go off mute. So yeah, so I'm a brand measurement. So the things that really get me are the things that really draw emotional connection, link it with music, bring it all together. Coke was a great example. And during the Olympics, they had a great Coke ad that really kind of bring the world together. So it's really kind of that emotional connection, brand build that really ties an emotion to that instance versus kind of call to action. Ultimately, they do want to sell more Cokes, but they're really trying to do more with it. And it's a lot what we try and do at the bank in terms of, well, what I try to do at the bank, which is, speak that brand is the tide that raises all boats across our products versus a single direct mail type thing that you're only going to see the impact in a card or deposits or something like that. So they're really talking about that halo. Now, two things that I got out of the reading. One, that ARF type survey that they looked at. And I noticed that the creatives have a very narrow range in terms of what they feel is important. And none of it was really past the 50% level. So kind of a hard group to please with that one. And then on the other side of the coin, the researchers almost thought every aspect of the journey was important to the process. But the thing that I thought was the most neat was in Mark's video piece where he talked about, he overlaid the research process with, it was the stages of the creative process. And it was that inverted triangle. And one was wider to narrower. And it showed how you lean into one aspect to others versus what stage you are in that. And I found that very valuable.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have a look at that and framework in just a minute, because that is the way that we are going to navigate this course, basically, is working our way through that framework. So yeah, thank you for raising that. Lori, what do you think?
So the advertising campaign that I picked was the progressive "You're Turning Into Your Parents" campaign. And so I like that campaign because I think it's very entertaining. I mean, it's one of those things that if the commercial comes on and I kind of hear the voices or whatever, I know that the Dr. Rick's voice, but like I'll stop what I'm doing and actually watch the campaign because I think it's so entertaining. I think it's entertaining because it's relatable. I mean, some of the things that they say on those are spot on if you have older parents. Anyway, but the thing I will say about it, when thinking about the readings so let me just say this, because when I was thinking about what advertising campaign do I really like, I was like, I think it's Progressive. I'm not sure. I think it's Progressive. So I actually did a Google search to make sure that it was Progressive. So in that particular campaign, I mean, my guess is they're trying to build brand awareness because they don't really talk about products in there at all, and they're not getting you to do some kind of call to action. It's more about just Progressive, I guess. But clearly they're not doing it's not doing a great job, because I who really like the advertising campaign had to do a Google search to double check to see that it was Progressive. So I'll just say, I mean, that's my guess when thinking about, like, what's the purpose of the campaign. I'm thinking it's to build brand awareness, but I don't know if it is or not. I mean, I think about I can think of other Progressive campaigns where they have Flo and her little band of little workers there who are talking about bundling and all of that stuff. So like that, I get that's more of a product sort of push, but I was going to say something and I forget, it just swept my mind. But anyway, I think, at the end of the day, it's insurance, and insurance is for the most part pretty boring. And if they can make an advertising campaign that is at least entertaining for people, I think they're doing something right there. But again, I don't know how much it's really increased their brand awareness. So.
What you're talking about, Lori, is spot on. It's a principle of salience. In other words, you don't know when somebody is going to be in the window to buy automotive insurance, home insurance. There is not a standard period of time. And so they spend a lot and have a lot of campaigns. So they have the Flo campaign, they have the, Don't Turn Into Your Parents campaign. They spend a lot to make sure that they are visible, that they are salient at that point of decision making. But also, to your point, what a shame that you couldn't remember that it was Progressive. So think about how much they are spending on that campaign. And at the end of the day, you're not the only one who wasn't really clear that it was Progressive. And so that is also an important KPI that we'll be talking about when we get into more the measurement side of things, is making sure that the brand is really integral to the story, and how to use distinctive brand assets, and how to make sure that people can just very intuitively understand your brand, because that is so critical.
Yeah. One fun fact about that. So when I did the Google search to see if it was Progressive, there was actually, a whole like landing page for that campaign. And they actually have a downloadable ebook that's supposed to be written by Dr. Rick, and to figure out, there's tests in there that you can give yourself to see if you're turning into your parents. And so I thought it was actually, I don't know how many people actually ever took the time to go to the landing page, but it was kind of clever. Once I got there, I started reading through the ebook and thinking this was pretty funny. So
I have got to check that out. I have to check that out. So Kelly, with an I, let's hear from you.
So I think one of my favorite campaigns, and it ran for, I think, 10 years, but it was the Doritos Crash the Super Bowl campaign. I find it fascinating for so many different reasons. I think, first of all, I love the idea that everyone is a creative. I think that thinking about it from like an account management standpoint, and being in a room when like creatives are discussing and having input, and sometimes, creatives bristle at it a little bit, but I think it's true. Like, a great idea can come from anywhere. I think that there are so many angles to the campaign when you think about how it can be executed from like a PR standpoint and from a web standpoint. And like the Super Bowl, it was relatable. People could relate. They felt like it was maybe a company that was for them. And then I think there was an element of surprise and suspense, like, what will it be this year? And I think it's just so interesting because I think it started in 2006, and it's like the coming of age of UGC, when, you have MySpace and Facebook is getting its start. And it really is interesting to see how Doritos kind of was like on the forefront of it. And they ended up stopping in 2016 because at this point, everybody is an Instagrammer that can do their own content, create their own commercials, whatever. But it's just really fascinating. And I think about like relating it back to our reading, and there's a couple of different things that it makes me think about. First is like the stakeholders in the room and just thinking about what it took to get something like that sold in, because on its head, it seems so lazy, right? But I think that I read there was like a 31% net increase from the campaign, going from like $1.5 billion to like $2.2 billion as a company. And I'm sure that there was like someone who was like the CMO that's like, this seems like it's a lot. I don't know. Are people going to care? And just the conversations between, you know, the creative team trying to sell it in, that account manager being like, I don't know how I'm going to sell this in to the clients being like, I don't know about it, or however it may have worked, is fascinating to me. The other thing is just about the insights. And Mark talked about like the insights kind of triangle and how you have to think about culture and consumer behavior. And, you know, I don't know if there was any research around it or not, but just thinking about how they were able to tap kind of that very unique moment in time to create a really cool Super Bowl commercial that was talked about a lot. It's fascinating.
And they were brave. I mean, today it is, you know, the norm to hand your brand over within reason to content creators and let them create your advertising. Back then, you know, 2006, good God, no, there is no way I am letting people create advertising for my brand. I have my brand guidelines, I have my style, I have my campaign idea, you know, it can't be. And they did it. And so you can imagine, as you were saying, the behind the scene conversations and how that idea was sold in, because it was risky. Now, the good news, it was for Doritos. It wasn't for Bank of America. It wasn't for Citi. It wasn't for, you know, a financial services company that is incredibly risk averse. It was for Doritos. So odds are they were going to land in a good place, but you can imagine those conversations. So yeah, great point. So Samantha Z.
So ever since I started this certificate program, I've been paying more attention to the ads on the subway because you don't have any phone service in there. So you're kind of just like staring. But one that really stood out to me was an ad for Street Easy, which is like a New York City apartment / house hunting platform. And it has like all of these moments in a New York City apartment search process that are reimagined as like Renaissance paintings. So there's one that's like co-op board investigates lifestyle of buyer's dog or something. And it's like a Renaissance-esque painting. And it's kind of like poking fun at different New York City neighborhoods and like different stereotypes about like a Brooklyn man finds future podcast studio, or just like little like quirks with each neighborhood in the city. And it stood out to me because I thought it was witty, and you know, I saw my own neighborhood represented and its own quirks kind of like pointed out. I used to live in Park Slope, which is like a very like parents neighborhood, like young families neighborhood. But yeah, but I think like tying it in with the readings, the lecture video about Nike and the Snickers bar and the idea of sort of linking the creative with the overall like competitive sort of advantage of the brand, or the overall brand purpose, I guess, because what makes that product stand out from its competitors is the fact that it's New York City specific and it's sort of geared towards the unique market of the New York City real estate landscape. And so the fact that that ad campaign was very specific to certain neighborhoods and represented this sort of like overall understanding of how New York is and how New York works, I think, yeah, I guess like thinking about it from that way, it was effective in communicating that part of that brand. So
it was very relevant to the New York City apartment hunter, very relevant to the culture of New York City. So I think that that's a great example how they've sort of brought that to life, and they've done it in a tongue-in-cheek fashion. And one of the things most of you are talking about, or many of you are talking about, is humor. We have very much seen a return to humor with COVID-19. You know, 2020, marketers decided to get very, very serious. A lot of them started embracing more of a brand purpose. they steered away from humor. But one of the things that we are seeing as an overall trend in the marketplace is this return to humor. And there's a lot of conversation about how brands are effectively using humor to get an audience and connect with people emotionally. So it's interesting to hear so many of you talking in the terms of some of the humor that is being featured in the campaigns. So thank you for that. That's great. Lynn, tell me a little bit about your ad.
I like the Allstate Mayhem ads. They're unique. It's very different. I started my career in insurance many years ago, and it was very bland, very to the point. Hey, you know, you need this because some disaster is going to happen to you. But again, going back to the humor, I think it presents it in a very different way. It's going to happen to someone sooner or later. So, you know, pay attention and do what you need to do. It's very different than the old gloom and doom, buy insurance because you're going to die. And I think that draws people in. And I think that was relating it to the reading, that insight to sort of flip the narrative on what they want to present to more of a humorous look at, hey, you know, no one dies, no one gets hurt. It's kind of funny, all the little different scenarios that they put him through to say, hey, but we have a solution for that and be prepared for it. So I think that's what I really liked about it. It's really kind of, it's different. And you said, again, it's the humor that pulls it out. It's something serious, but it can connect to a person more easily by putting it in a humorous form.
Yeah.
So,
and think about how many versions they've done of that campaign. You know, one of the things we're going to talk about is the concept of a big idea. Mayhem is a brilliant big idea. It has legs. It is, you can make so many different assets from that idea that you can just see how it can really perform very strongly and build that brand. So great point. Great point. Any thoughts on the reading, Lynn?
I like the way that the study that showed how creatives and like other folks and researchers and the marketers all think really differently where the role of research fits in. And I think most of us have probably experienced it through our journey. I've been in meetings where someone didn't realize the researcher was in the meeting, and I'm just like, you're interpreting that wrong. And like the room goes silent because the creatives didn't realize the researcher was there, and you could just see them blanch, like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
So I think that was really interesting, that it's not just an isolated incident. It seems to be an industry-wide issue, that there's sort of these different components and they don't necessarily work together as well as they should.
Yeah. And I was in a meeting recently where we talked a little bit about that paper and updating that paper to talk about how the process had changed and the ways of working had changed. And I sort of politely raised my hand and said, but has it changed? And the realization was, no, it really hasn't. We haven't made a ton of progress on that one. So it's still something that we need to tackle to really get to great creative. So thank you for that, Lynn. Abilio, what do you think about, what's your ad?
I am going back to the Home Depot. You can do it. We can help. I like to think of myself as a handyman, and I need a lot of help when doing my projects, and that really was catchy to me. It's an old campaign, but it stays with me as I go into the store and I need things. So I always ask for questions, and that is driven by that old campaign.
Yeah.
On the article, I've never been a part of the discussions or the creative ideas and data that supports it, but I can see the tension. I can see the tug of war, and sometimes I think that it might be a matter of credibility between the parts, as we in research are we come armed with data and our insights and our interpretations, and sometimes the people, the other stakeholders, might doubt the way we look at the data and we interpret it. And and like I said, it hasn't been the research is there, the solutions have been presented, but there is no breakthrough. And I think it's going to be there needs to be a lot of work for that interaction to be used, and for the team to work together in a way that it's going to be a win-win for the team and for ultimately the brand.
Yep, you got it. You got it. And I love that you mentioned an old campaign. Some of you are mentioning some of the longest running campaigns that we've had. This is great advertising. It's not just a one-time shot. It is campaignable. It is long-term in nature. And so David, you're batting cleanup this time. So tell us a little bit about your ad.
The ad I was thinking of is also actually a part of a bigger campaign when I looked it up, is because in the Olympics they did this thing almost that about sports changing lives, which I know when I looked it up, they've actually been doing it for the last 3 years or so, making it about like, it's not just equipment you're buying. It's more than that. It's the connection to the team, and I think that it goes for the emotional ties to it, especially because of the fact like it's always about like a heartfelt message is like them playing soccer together, them playing baseball. And so like to me that is like huge, is because like I'm a communication nerd. I think sometimes is like connection is always important to me. So like that's where when I was doing the reading, that was where I thought it was fascinating, just because of the fact of like Colin kind of mentioned, like deconstructing it to this big idea that it's more than just a sport. It's, you know, it's everything tied to that. And so I think too, it relates to my work that I do now, is because Best Buy is about to rebrand itself. Well, we're in the process of it, to refresh ourselves is how it is. But I think too, like it's now like trying to see how that works, because like
Yeah.
I've only seen parts of it. So the other aspect of it was the relationship piece that you kind of already mentioned, is like I definitely see that, because like our media team and our creative team are going at it from two different perspectives. And so like how that's coming to life is interesting from the research part, because we're kind of tapped in after they decide everything. So it's always like that conflict. And so reading that whole ARF thing was very interesting to me, because I was like, I see that all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, that's a great point in terms of like the media and the creative working together. You know, I get asked that question often about which comes first. And in actuality, they should be done simultaneously, because media should be about where and how to or where to optimally connect with people, where to deliver your ideas and executions in an optimal fashion. But it becomes too much of a body count. It becomes too much of, okay, we're going to get, you know, X number of viewers, we're going to get X number of clicks, and, you know, we're going to get unique reach over here, and we're going to get a frequency over here. And I think we've lost some of that yin and yang to media and creative, that could, if done right, be optimized. So thank you, everybody, for sharing your stories. I just wanted to take you very quickly through some quick slides of my own. And then, let's see. All right. So this is the framework that I think Stephen had referenced during his chat. And this is the way in which the session is going to flow. So we are going to be starting out with research that is really designed to inspire, research that's designed to explore, to really understand your audience, culture, the market. These are the things that are required to get grounded before you can even get to something that looks like an execution. You have to really understand what you're trying to accomplish and the environment in which you're trying to do it. Then in the middle, we start to get to ideas, and that's when we'll have a guest speaker talk to us about big ideas. He's just absolutely fantastic. You're going to love him. So I'll tee him up late, and I think he's week 4. And then finally, the shift. in the research focus or the focus shifts. Come on, Ann. And it goes more towards assessment, more to measurement. And so what you're trying to accomplish with the tools has more to do with the finished assets as opposed to the ideas and the insights. So this is the flow that we're going to be taking. I think we talked a lot about this in terms of, an insight is not data. It's not even an observation. In my mind, the definition I use for an insight is it's a human truth. It's something that exists in the human condition that we talk about and can find, use as a tension or a source of creativity for a campaign. So your assignment for next week is we are going to be looking at 3 ads, one for a Thai insurance company, one for Ram Trucks, and one for Cheerios. And this assignment is important because it's going to be your first opportunity to really look under the hood of advertising. So really to think about how they got to this place. So what do you think the objectives were? How is emotion used in the execution? What did you think the messages were? Did they get the brand integration strongly, or what would people walk away not knowing the brand? And really, I want you to explain your reasoning. Why do you think this when you look at these ads? And there will be some degree of subjectivity, but that's okay. I just want to get a sense of how you're thinking about sort of the process and the foundations of great advertising. So with that, I think we are at time. Any quick questions or any comments before I let you all go? Great. Well, thank you again for sharing your stories. The Zoom meeting will be the same link every week, and you should have it. I put it both into the announcements as well as sent to you in an email, and I believe you should have it in your calendars as well. But if you have any questions throughout the week, just reach out to me. Via email is probably easiest, and I am happy to discuss and help. All right. Thank you, everybody, and have a lovely evening.
Oh, one question.
Yes.
Is there a certain time of the week or date that you want, like the homework? I know that the last class I took, she wanted it by Saturday or something like that.
Yes.
So it's a
Great question. Tuesday at 8 a.m.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, my Tuesdays is my grading and prep day. So if you can get to me for Tuesday, 8 a.m., that would be great.
Okay.
Okay.
But this assignment is not due until not next Tuesday, but
No, this one is due on the 10th.
on the 10th.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.